All right. Well, welcome again to the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And in case you couldn't hear me outside, my name is Elisa. And we'll just be in here about 20 minutes or so in the auditorium before you head out to explore around the aquarium. Has anyone been here before to the aquarium? Awesome. A lot of you. Anyone's first time today? First time? A couple. Well, that is awesome. Yeah. And you have lots of friends that have been here before and can show you around. And you all should have gotten a booklet, and if you didn't, I can get you one as we head out after the program. And on the back, there is a map to help you find your way around as you explore. We're currently in the auditorium, so that's right here. When you head out, we'll be going out the back doors there, out into the kind of main lobby of the aquarium. So straight ahead will be our sea otters on exhibit. If you turn to the left-hand side, you'll find the habitats that are near shore, closer to shore in the Monterey Bay. So kelp forest, Monterey Bay habitats. We have some touch pools on our first and second floors. Anyone want to touch some live animals while you're here today? Yeah, definitely do. Just remember to touch them gently, keep them under the water, but definitely visit there. And we have volunteers that love to share about the animals while you're there. We also have our splash zone area up here and our penguins. I will warn you, the splash zone has the play area where there's lots of littler kids running around. So if you don't want to be bombarded by little kids, you can bypass that area. And then if you want to go across the bridge or from here, you can go up the stairs. Here's the open sea wing. So all the animals that are further out in the ocean, this is where you can find our jellies gallery. And the open sea exhibit has some of the larger fish and sharks. My favorite fish is the mola mola or ocean sunfish. You can look for that one. It's kind of the derpy looking one with a cute little face. Definitely check for that. And then downstairs here, you do have to go up and back down to get there. We have our rotating exhibit. So right now it's tentacles, all different types of octopus, squid, and cuttlefish, and Viva Baja, all different animals from Baja in Mexico. But today what we're talking about a little bit is the research and conservation work that we do here at the aquarium and out in the wild with our partners, our research partners. And so we're going to be talking about some of the animals that we study out in the wild, including sea otters. So we study a lot of, and that's mom with a little pup. Hook you with the cute sea otters, right? So yeah, we study sea otters in their natural habitat. Partly, they're awe-inspiring animals, but also they're very important to the ecosystem here, and we'll talk about that more. We also study pelagic animals like great white sharks and tuna, so we're going to be talking about we want to study these animals in their natural habitat in order to learn more about them and be able to protect them because they're really important animals in the ecosystem. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But we're going to start with my favorite, the sea otters. And here at the aquarium, pretty much since the aquarium opened, we've been researching or learning about... I know it's hard to compete with adorable sea otters, right? So I know we love the sea otters, and that's why we want to protect them and learn more about them. And so in order to do that, we have some different technology we use. With sea otters, since they live close to shore, we use mostly visual ways. So tag sea otters, you can see the flipper tag there on the end, the orange tag. We'll also put a radio transmitter. So this is a small surgery they do to put a radio transmitter into the sea otters. And that way then they can identify each individual otter, so when they're out observing them from shore, they can either just look at the flipper tags, which is different for each otter, as well as the signal that it gives off, and they can tell each animal apart, and they research and write down what behaviors the otters are doing, what are they eating, how often are they eating, if they're having pups. So all this is really important research in order to understand how healthy the sea otters are in our bay and how their population is doing. So that's the radio transmitter she's using there to catch to hear the signals from the otters in order to see where they're at and then observe them through the binoculars, through the scope. And so by observing these behaviors, they've found a lot of interesting things. And we also do a census count every year. So here's a biologist goes up into usually a plane and flies along the coast in order to count ones that are a little further offshore. And then they also do counts from shore in order to know how many otters are out in the wild. And from there, we've learned a lot of interesting things, including the sea otter range. If you might have heard about this before, there used to be southern sea otters all up and down the coast of California and down into Mexico historically. Unfortunately, they were hunted for their beautiful thick fur that they have, and so they thought sea otters actually went extinct, but they found a group of about 50 otters near Big Sur, and from that group we now have the population has grown up. That number is a little outdated. It's over 3,000 otters right now, but their range, as you can see, is much smaller than historical, and their population is growing but slowly, and that's why researchers are still studying the otters in order to understand why their population and range isn't growing as much as they think it could eventually to get back to more historic levels. And by studying them, they've learned that sea otters play a really important role in the kelp forest. Here's another mom with pup. If you saw out on the bay, you might have seen the kelp, the brown stuff floating on the water, right? That's the kelp forest habitat. And sea otters, grooming his fur there. Sea otters are very important. They're a keystone species in the kelp forest, so they help maintain the balance of a lot of the food webs in the kelp forest, so they're really important in maintaining the habitat. When sea otters came back to this area, we also saw the kelp forest come back. They're also really important in Elkhorn Slough, so some of the slough habitats around here in maintaining balance. And we've also learned that sea otters love to eat. Does anybody like to eat a lot? Yeah, I do too. Sea otters love to eat because they have to eat a lot in order to maintain their body temperature to stay warm in the cold water. So a sea otter has to spend about half its day hunting and eating in order to eat up to 25% of its body weight every day. So that's a lot. But also they've learned that sea otters, here's some of the food sea otters like to eat. So things with shells, urchins, abalone, crabs. But not all sea otters will eat all of these things. By studying the otters, they've learned that certain otters will focus or have kind of favorite foods they like to eat, and then they'll teach their pups to look for those foods. And other than just maybe they like that type of food, it's mostly so they avoid competition between each other. So say a couple sea otters living in the same area might eat different things so that they're not fighting over the same resources. So that's something they've learned by studying otters that they didn't know before. They thought they just ate whatever was available, but now they know they kind of specialize in certain things. So while you're exploring today, in your booklet there's a page that encourages you to go to the sea otter exhibit and act like one of our researchers and actually track what the otter behaviors are doing, just like they do out from the shore. So looking for a few minutes at what the otters doing, diving, eating, grooming, sleeping, one of their favorite other things to do. So you can do that as well. And some of the other animals I mentioned we like to study. Anyone know what animal this is? That is a tuna, yeah. Did anyone else think they were like can-sized? Yeah, so tuna are one of the other animals that we study out in the wild because they're a very popular seafood option, and they're currently threatened by overfishing. And so we're trying to study them as much as possible and working with global partners to study them in order to better protect them. So I'm going to make you talk to each other, so pretend you like each other for a minute. And I want you to talk to each other about what would be some challenges of studying an animal like a tuna that can travel really far distances out in the ocean. So talk to each other for a minute about that. All right. Anybody have any thoughts they want to share or something someone near them said that they want to share? Do you think it'd be really easy to study these animals? No? Why not?
Because they go far.
They travel really far, yeah. So we, to study them, might have to also travel far. Okay. Yeah, and also they travel across borders, right? The animals don't know about international waters or borders, so they go between different countries. So in terms of regulation for them, we have to work with a lot of different organizations, different countries and policy in order to protect a global animal like this. And yeah, it's really expensive and hard to study animals out in the open ocean. And so what we're going to be talking about is there's a lot of technology that we've used and has evolved over the years to better study these animals out in the ocean. And so one of them is a tag, so you can see it on the tuna there. And since 1996, the aquarium has been working with other research partners to study tuna out in the wild with satellite tags like this. And so it tracks where they go. It's like GPS location. They also find out like how deep they dive and have been able to find a little bit more about their migration patterns, which then they can use to help inform policy, global policy. So there's just one tuna tag showing you how far they can go. Yeah, so again, they travel far, real far. But yeah, this research data has, maybe not a straight line. This research data has been used to study, to apply to sustainable practices. And so here at the aquarium, we have a program called Seafood Watch that's used all over the world that talks about sustainable seafood options. Does anyone here like to eat seafood? It's okay. I love to eat seafood and sushi. Yeah? Maybe not yet. I didn't used to like seafood. I actually started liking it more, which is ironic working in an aquarium. But it is, we encourage you to eat seafood, but what you can do is there is the Seafood Watch app, or there's also pocket guides you can get as you're walking around today. And it just informs you like the best choice or alternative choice when you're out shopping for food, or if you're at a restaurant, you can kind of make those choices when possible, because we understand sometimes they're also more expensive. So it's just whenever you can have that option, you can choose the more sustainable option. All right, and when you're in your booklet, you can visit the Fragile Seas exhibit. I forgot to point this out on the map. It's down by the Viva Baja and Tentacles exhibit on the first floor of the open sea. And you can learn a little bit more about fishing practices and studies done on tuna. All right, but last but certainly not least, we're going to talk about the great white shark and how we study white sharks out in the wild. So here's a quick clip of how the researchers lure the sharks close enough to their small boat to put a tag on a shark. So here they're placing a camera tag, which I'll talk about a little later, but this is just to show you how they tag the white sharks out in the wild. So they just put the tag on, and then like I said, different types of technology has evolved over the years. So originally what they used to put on the tags, or still sometimes do, was something called an acoustic tag. And this, similar to the otter transmitter, gives you a ping that's an individual shark, but it only monitors it when it swims next to that buoy, that listening station, close enough. And so by doing this, they had these listening stations all up and down the coast, and they knew this is where sharks spend a lot of their time along the coast, mostly near where there's a lot of seals or sea lions, seal rookeries they're called, so where they spend their time. But during the springtime, for decades they thought, the sharks just go between the different areas. But then during the spring, they realized each year the sharks would disappear, and they didn't know where they were going. And so, again, had to get some better technology to figure that out. So they started using the satellite tags, very similar to the ones that we use for tuna, a little bit bigger for sharks. And so, again, you can see the tag, and there's an example one up here. And so they tag that onto the shark. It stays on for about a year, and then eventually pops off and downloads the data to a satellite. Although the tricky part with these tags is we do have to collect this little tag either out in the ocean or up on a beach in order to get all of the data back. So that's one of the challenges, is trying to find the tags out in the ocean after. They do give off a signal, but that's one of the extra steps. If you ever find one, they sometimes wash up on a beach. You do get a small reward for returning it back to us, so keep an eye out for that. Because we want on that research data. It's very important to us. But from this tag data, we've found some interesting things. So they know that, like I said, the sharks leave. Now they know they go out into sometimes some of them go all the way out to Hawaii, but they mostly spend their time out in this middle section between here and Hawaii. And for a while, they still don't know for sure what they're doing out there. So again, I want you to talk to each other. And they do come back every year. So if you're an animal traveling that far, it's got to be for a purpose. So I want you again to talk to each other. Why do you think the sharks are going out to that middle of the spot? So talk to each other, and then we'll share out. Talk to each other for a minute. All right. Any ideas? Anybody want us to share? Anybody? Yeah.
It's probably like a breeding ground.
Might be a breeding ground. Okay, definitely an option or possibility. Other ideas? Food, yeah, right? We're all pretty food motivated, so they definitely think they might be going out there for food. Oh, like it's more undisturbed area? Yeah, so maybe there's more out there. And yeah, so that is the main things, though. They've dubbed this area now the White Shark Cafe, because a cafe is somewhere you might go to eat or to meet a special someone, go on a date. And so that's why they call it the White Shark Cafe. And so they know sharks are going out there, and they think it might be for eating or mating, but they don't still know for sure. So they're using some other technology to try and find out what the sharks are actually doing out there. One of the newer technology they've started using recently is called a blubber burrito. So this is a piece of seal blubber, and then they hide the tag, they wrap the tag in that blubber, and then it looks tasty, yeah. And then they deploy this, so they'll put it out and again lure the shark close enough to try and get the shark to eat. The idea is to eat the blubber because they like that, and swallow the tag. And so they'll eventually get the shark to come up and eat it. And once the shark swallows that tag, then the tag inside is similar to a satellite tag, and again, it can record its GPS. But in addition, it can also record like the speed they're swimming at, the depth they're swimming, and as well as when a shark eats, because sharks only eat every once in a while, it tells them, because cold water rushes in, they can tell when a shark eats, and so that also they know how often the shark is eating. But don't worry, they do eventually, when sharks basically regurgitate parts of, like, say, a seal bone that they can't break down, they do basically spit it up eventually, so the tag will come out. But from this, they've learned that sharks will, out in the White Shark Cafe, the males do an interesting behavior where the sharks will dive up and down up to 100 times a day, and pretty far deep in. And they don't totally know why they're doing this. They know they're doing it, but they're still trying to figure out why. They don't know if it's like a feeding behavior, a mating behavior, something, but that's a shark's pattern, diving up and down. The other technology they're using that's really cool is what we saw at the beginning, where they were deploying a camera onto the shark. So they're actually putting basically a GoPro onto a shark and hoping, yeah, we did it, and then getting a shark's eye view of what's happening out in the cafe. So we're hoping with this research, they don't have the results yet, but we're hoping to find out for sure. Are they mating? Are they feeding? We don't know exactly. Interesting fact is that we know, obviously, that sharks mate and give birth, but no one's ever seen that happen. They've seen a pregnant shark. They've seen pregnant sharks swimming. They've seen them with markings they think are from mating, but they don't. That's a pregnant shark. But they don't know. They haven't seen it, how exactly it happens, so they're still trying to research that, which we'll talk about. And so, yeah, the males will always, each year, will swim back to Monterey, but here's showing you that sometimes the females, if they're pregnant, there's the red line, the female will swim to a different area, down either to Southern California or to Baja in Mexico, because that's where they've found the juveniles will be born. So these are nursery areas where the white sharks will go, and the shark will go back to wherever they were born. So they'll usually swim back to whichever one they're familiar with, and a female shark will carry the baby for over a year, and will often have a couple of pups, and in those areas. And one of those is the this bay in Baja in Mexico. And so we really want to study these areas and protect them because these young white sharks are really vulnerable to lots of different things. And so these areas where the water's warm and there's food for the young sharks are important to protect them in order to conserve their habitat and conserve the population numbers for the future. And something different than some animals is once the mom gives birth, the mom swims off. So that young shark is on its own. And so that's why it's really important to protect those areas. And due to warming waters, we have seen some more young sharks swim up here to Monterey Bay sometimes. So after they're born, they'll be looking for food and come up here as well, or up near Santa Cruz area. So the young small ones, but we do see those coming up here more often. So while you're exploring today, there's a couple other areas for you to go to study more about white sharks. So there's a Baja exhibit, like we talked about in the beginning, and you can learn a little bit more about some of the challenges or conservation issues that might be facing these young sharks that are born in the Baja nursery area. And also we want you to visit the Open Sea exhibit and design your own tracking tag. So think about how you would study one of those animals out in the ocean and think about different ways you could tag and track them out there. And also while you're here, think about what you can do to help protect these awesome animals, the cute sea otters, the really cool fish and sharks. So just learn more while you're here, share with your friends and family, as well as, like we mentioned, the Seafood Watch app. And also, not too far distant future, you can vote and you can tell your legislators that you care about ocean conservation issues and protecting these animals. So, yeah, any questions? I know that was a lot. Yeah. In the aquarium? Yeah. We don't have a white shark, but we have about 15 different species of sharks and rays. The biggest sharks we have are usually either our hammerhead sharks or our seven-gill sharks. So the hammerheads are in the open sea and the seven-gills are in the Monterey Bay Habitats exhibit. Yeah. We also have lots of small sharks too that are local to this area. Any other questions? Yeah?
Yeah. How many of the satellite tags do you have returned to you roughly every year?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know how many satellite tags, you know?
I think there's a higher percentage rate. It's like 25 to 50% rate. They're expensive tags, but not all get returned. So the more we can find, the better.
Yeah, so we're only able to get about 25 to 50% of them back. But like we said, they pop off and some of the data gets downloaded just to get all the data we need to get them or find them back.
So if I catch a tuna with one on, I'm going to bring it back to you.
There you go, yeah. You catch the fish with it, yeah. So friends, while you're exploring today around the aquarium, just remember you're some of the older students here today, so please set a good example for some of the younger students and be respectful of each other and the animals out in the aquarium. Also, I know a lot of you have cameras and phones. Please take pictures and videos. Just remember to turn the flash off. We are a flash-free facility here at the aquarium, so please do that. Teachers, do you have any other announcements you'd like to make before you all head out?
I want to meet with my students just before we begin to head out, so right up here at the top, okay?
Okay, and I'm going to meet you at the back door to open it for you in just a moment here. And if anyone needs a small pencil, I have some for you.